Okay, let's start. So, in the last class we had talked about what? Article 5, prohibited artificial intelligence practices. Okay. Now, we had finished clause 1, which basically states that the following artificial intelligence practices shall be prohibited, and we had talked about everything that is prohibited. So, we had finished it until here. Okay. Then the rest of the clauses, so this says this article shall not affect the prohibitions that apply where artificial intelligence practice infringes other union law. So, if some other law prohibits something, of course, this law is also not permitting that. So you can't do through AI those things that are prohibited by some other law and so on. So now they don't give the list of prohibited things, so they talk about some kind of things. So they basically try to explain more about real-time biometric identification, how police can do it, so how enforcement authority can do it. Important thing here that I wanted to do was they talk about fundamental rights impact assessment. So we will also talk about it. So they say that even though police is allowed to do certain things, but they have to comply with, so they have to follow a procedure. Okay. So those are the details here that I don't really want to go here. For example, a competent judicial authority will give some kind of permissions to police to do some kind of things. So those are actually very much details. In a short course we can't cover those things. So we now directly come to this one, title 3. Title 1 was general, so basically kind of introduction to the act, where article 1 was the subject matter, article 2 was the scope of the regulation, article 3 definitions, article 4 AI literacy, article 5 prohibitions, article 6 classification rules for high risk AI systems. Okay. So we are into title 3 now, that talks about high risk AI systems, and this particular title we can call it to be the heart of this act. So most of it revolves around this part, because what is prohibited, right? You can't do much there. Okay, so we start talking about high risk AI now, and I will come to clause 1 after clause 2. So in addition to the high risk AI systems referred to in paragraph 1, so in addition to this, we will go there later, AI systems referred to in annexure 3 shall also be considered high risk. So let us go to annexure 3 now. Annexure 3. So we are here from where? Which article sent us to annexure 3? Article 6 clause 2. So article 6 clause 2 says we are listing those applications here, those AI applications here which are high risk. Okay. High risk means so the act says we are not putting it into the list of prohibitions, we are rather calling it high risk. That means it is allowed provided you follow a lot of procedure, and this act primarily lays down the procedure for such applications. So see, if you talk about this risk pyramid that EU Act has proposed, on the top what is there? Prohibitions. So you can't just do that. Second level is high risk AI, you can do that provided you meet a lot of other conditions. Next is transparency conditions. So for example, deep fake, they don't say deep fake is prohibited, They don't say deep fake is high risk. What they say that deep fake has to, so it has to conform the transparency requirement, which is if you are making a deep fake, whichever company you are, then the user, so think of it this way, a video is running and somewhere, like what happens when you go to cinema halls and everywhere where there is a commercial of cigarette, what will they say at the bottom? So this is dangerous to health and so on. So things like this, that you have to tell user that this is deep fake and is not a real video. Okay. And then what is the last level? Last level is minimal risk. Things like if you want to make a game like Candy Crush where you are using AI deep learning, that should be okay, or spam filters, right? All right, now we come to high risk AI systems. So high risk AI systems pursuant to Article 6 Clause 2 are the AI systems listed in any of the following areas. So most of biometrics was prohibited there itself. In which article? Biometrics was prohibited in which article? Article 5. Okay. Now we are talking about Article 6. So we have come here from Article 6. Article 6 Clause 2 has sent us here. Now biometric insofar as their use is permitted under relevant union or national law. So they say the kind of biometrics that is prohibited, but what is not prohibited is also coming under which level? High risk. So two things, biometrics is prohibited, but those use cases where it is not prohibited, it comes under this high risk. Okay. So biometrics, so what is high risk? Biometrics insofar as their use is permitted under the relevant union or national law. So biometrics is high risk provided that it is permitted under relevant union or national law. Now union law means European Union law, national law means a particular European country's law, that is the member of European Union. So remote biometric identification systems. What is this? Remote biometric identification systems. What do you understand from this? This shall not include AI systems intended to be used for biometric verification whose sole purpose is to confirm that a specific natural person is the person he or she claims to be. Right. So here now, what is remote biometric identification system? So as used in this regulation should be defined functionally as an AI system, so it should be defined functionally as an AI system intended for identification of natural persons without their active involvement, typically at a distance, through the comparison of a person's biometric data with the biometric data contained in a reference database. What does this mean? So my question is, what does it mean until here? Notion of remote biometric identification used as in this regulation should be defined functionally as an AI system intended for identification of natural persons with or so without their active involvement. So with is not here, typically at a distance, through the comparison of a person's biometric data with the biometric data contained in a reference database. So there is a database that is already having the biometric information. So you want to identify persons typically at a distance. So can you give me an example of this? So, a CCTV installed in a railway station, right, and then they are trying to do biometric identification. Okay. Irrespectively of whether particular technology, process or type of biometric data used. So, it does not matter which kind of technology you are using. Such remote biometric identification systems are typically used to perceive multiple persons or their behavior simultaneously in order to facilitate significantly the identification of natural persons without their active involvement. So, what have we understood in this whole sentence until now here? There is a database in which you have biometric information and you are trying to identify some person. Okay. Important here is typically at a distance without their involvement. Okay. And such remote biometric identification are typically used to perceive multiple persons or their behavior simultaneously in order to facilitate significantly the identification of natural persons without their active involvement. One example dena iska. So, what could be one example? One example. I just talked about it. What was that? Right. So, why should this be bad? Why should this be bad? So, this excludes AI systems intended to be used for biometric verification, which includes authentication, whose sole purpose is to confirm that a specific natural person is the person he or she claims to be, and to confirm the identity of a natural person for the sole purpose of having access to a service, unlocking a device or having security access to premises. This exclusion is justified by the fact that such systems are likely to have minor impact on fundamental rights of natural persons compared to the remote biometric identification systems, which may be used for the processing of biometric data for a large number of persons without their active involvement. So, underline this, without their active involvement. In the case of real-time systems, the capturing of the biometric data, the comparison and the identification will occur all instantaneously, near instantaneously, or in any event without a significant delay. Right. So, why is this clause added? So, in case of real time systems, they could have simply said real time systems, but why this so long sentence?
They capture the video and then they process the data.
Yes. Yes. Why simply not say real time systems, and that should be enough? Somebody might come and say, see, what I was doing was not real time. So, they are explicitly writing, see, if it occurs instantaneously, fine, it is real time. Near instantaneously is also real time, or in any event without a significant delay. Okay. In this regard, there should be no scope for circumventing the rules of this regulation on the real time use of AI systems in question by providing for minor delay. So, you can't basically play with this regulation just by saying that, see, this was not real time, this was done 2 minutes after that or whatever. Real time systems involve the use of live or near live material such as video footage generated by a camera or other device with similar functionality. In the case of post systems, that means post biometric identification, in contrast, the biometric data have already been captured and the comparison identification occurs only after a significant delay. This involves material such as picture or video footage generated by closed circuit television cameras or private devices, which has been gathered before the use of system in respect of the natural persons concerned. Right. So, what do we understand from this remote biometric identification system? You are trying to identify a person at a distance. So if we are trying to identify a person, let's say entering in this class, and we are allowing entry only through the faces, okay, that is okay. Why is that okay? Somewhere we also read this should be okay. I mean, see, law is a balance between what the rights of the citizens and the regulatory power of the government, right? So nobody should have, nobody should completely, so it has to be proportionate. The fundamental rights, they don't carry infinite power. The regulatory power of the government, that does not carry infinite power. So there has to be a balance. So they say this is okay. Why? Because you are identifying me here, I am here, that should be fine. I am sitting here in my class and some, let's say, police is trying to figure me out where I was on that particular, that particular day is fine. But if they are trying to do real time remote identification somewhere else, this they find is too much and should not be allowed as such. So this is prohibited or not? Okay. So is this paragraph okay? So we go back to what we were doing. Having understood the context for this remote biometric identification, we go back to Annexure 3 now. So biometrics, insofar as their use is permitted under this law or any other law, remote biometric identification systems are prohibited or they are high risk. High risk, right? They are listed here, right? So remote biometric identification systems, and they put full stop, no explanation, nothing for explanation, you have to go to recital 8. So remote biometric identification systems are put in high risk category. That means it is allowed, right? So it is not prohibited but in high risk category. That means you have to go through a lot of conformity assessment. And this should not include AI systems intended to be used for sole purpose is to confirm that specific natural person. So that is fine. AI systems intended to be used for biometric categorization according to sensitive or protected attributes or characteristics based on the inference of those attributes or characteristics. What does this mean? No, that is fine, but what is this exactly talking about? Okay, but what more? According to sensitive or protected attributes or characteristics based on the inference of those attributes or characteristics. So if you don't like protected, look for sensitive. So let's say you are using biometric system to categorize people in two categories, white and black. Okay. So this is, so AI systems intended to be used for biometric categorization according to sensitive or protected attributes or characteristics based on the inference of those attribute characteristics. Or what else can be? So let's say you are trying to do this kind of thing. So people with this kind of fingerprints are all offenders. Okay, so such kind of things, no. Sorry. See the way why is this regulation coming? This regulation is coming because the way AI is being done today, everybody is doing AI for everything, right? So there has to be a regulation saying this is allowed and this is not allowed. So while this may not make sense to you, this may make sense to someone else, and so on. AI systems intended to be used for emotion recognition. So AI systems intended to be used for emotion recognition. What is wrong with emotion recognition now? We have talked about it in the last class, by the way. No, this is not prohibited. So if your AI can predict that I am having suicidal thoughts, you would rather like to predict it and do counseling. No, for example, I am working here, okay, and you are, so I am on camera and somebody is trying to predict whether I am teaching properly or not. So see, at time instant this, your emotion is such that you don't want to teach properly. Or you smiled at this in class, it does not mean you are not taking teaching seriously. Right, so that is an extreme example, right? That is an extreme example, but too late, I won't give attendance. So AI systems intended to be used for emotion recognition. We have talked about this in the last class, so I won't repeat it here now. Now, critical infrastructure. AI systems intended to be used as safety components in the management and operation of critical digital infrastructure, road traffic, and the supply of water, gas, heating, electricity. So first part is over, remote biometric identification system, that is over. Now this one. So why should this be high risk? What more? No attendance. No attendance. Yes. So let's say you want to use AI in supply of water. AI does a mistake and all the household may get whatever, let's say poisonous water. Okay. Heating. So what is this heating? Right. So there you have this central heating systems, right? So those things. Electricity. Instead of whatever regulated voltage, AI suddenly does something, right? So the idea is, so is this prohibited? See, always you have to keep on thinking, is this prohibited?
No, sir.
Is this prohibited? No. So this is under which category? High risk. That means you can do this, right? But you have to be, so you have to be compliant with the necessary points that we will talk about later. So you have to be in conformity with the procedure laid down here. So this is allowed, but I think everybody agrees that it makes sense to allow first, but then to put it in high risk category because this has potential to damage just too much. Okay. What can be critical digital infrastructure? Third is education and vocational training. So you guys tell me. So I'll just give you the headlines first. So education and vocational training. What can be high risk in this? Okay, वो तो I can still do.
सर फिर किसी को एकदम रेसिस्ट रिमार्क्स पढ़ा रहे हैं कि गांधी जी तो मारते ही थे गोली पढ़ा सकते हैं
Okay.
मेडिकल साइंस में हाई रिस्क है
क्या चीज?
मेडिकल साइंस में हाई रिस्क है एजुकेशन अगर के
This nowhere says medical sciences.
मतलब एजुकेशन के अंदर जो हाई रिस्क मेडिकल साइंस का ही सबसे ज्यादा
Okay, what else?
तो एक बग काट दें
Okay, so let's say I start using computer vision and AI to check your copies. And somebody who was supposed to get 25 out of 30 starts getting 5. Right? If I do this in class, fine. But if UPSC starts doing this, right? So that becomes a really high risk thing. And you know, UPSC once translated this. So I think somewhere around 2014-15, UPSC, the Hindi version of the paper, was translated using Google Translator. And those days, Google Translate was not that good, at least not from English to Hindi, maybe from English to Spanish, still fine. And people couldn't understand, and that was okay because you seriously can't understand. And they literally just translated without doing any check.
सर वो जो क्वेश्चंस आए थे ना ट्रांसलेट हो गए उनका मीनिंग कुछ और निकल रहा था
Exactly. So something like, let's say if this says, so let's say if the question was, Taj Mahal is on bank of Agra, no, on bank of Yamuna River. Okay. So bank was translated, so like Taj Mahal, bank के बैंक whatever है ना. So बैंक की river जो भी बना दोगे उसको तुम, fine. So that was catastrophic and was done by UPSC. So if you see, this is a really high risk AI used by UPSC. So UPSC, as they say, is already biased towards English speakers, right? And these days, in fact, it has been there for quite some time, they are also biased towards engineers, because this CSAT is very heavy paper. Those who are from arts background, commerce background, it is very difficult for them. So if you start translating, if UPSC starts translating using AI, AI, so that's a big deal. Similarly and we'll come to that as well. So now let us start talking about this. So AI systems intended to be used to determine access or admission or to assign natural persons to educational and vocational training institutions at all levels. So used to determine access or admission, JEE, right? So JEE, these days they don't have subjective questions, right? So let's say it was subjective and you are using AI to check the copies, because it determines access or admission or to assign natural persons to educational and vocational training institutions at all levels. What does it mean at all levels? From playgroup to PhD. It does not matter which level of education you are talking about. AI systems intended to be used to evaluate learning outcomes, okay, checking of evaluation of copies, including when those outcomes were used to steer learning process of natural persons in educational and vocational training institutions at all levels. AI systems intended to be used for the purpose of assessing the appropriate level of education that individual will receive or will be able to access in the context of or within education and vocational training institution. What is this? So, AI systems intended to be used for the purpose of assessing the appropriate level of education that individual will receive or will be able to access in the context of within education or vocational training institution. I had an example of this 2 days ago and it was a good one. So, let me think again. AI systems intended to be used for the purpose of assessing the appropriate level of education that individual will receive. Right. So I am whatever, and as you already said, and you start deciding whether I am appropriate for computer science or engineering or arts or whatever. Okay. So, appropriate level of education that individual will receive, but still this example is a bit far anyway, but this no, that's a different thing. So, intended to be used for the purpose of assessing appropriate level of education that individual will receive, or so access for education is what they are talking about. So, whether you should be assigned a particular course or not. So, I make a AI filter, those who pass it will be able to go through my course or else not, stupid kind of thing. Okay. So, AI systems intended to be used for monitoring and detecting prohibited behaviors of students during test in the context of within educational. What is this? Say that again. Exactly. So a camera detects person A was trying to cheat from person B. Okay. So, AI systems intended to be used for monitoring and detecting prohibited behavior of students during tests.
Real-time monitoring, वो जो prohibited था, real-time biometric monitoring. देखिए जो बोल रहे कि मैं setting के लिए लगा रहा हूँ, लेकिन देखिए तो save कर रहा था data और मतलब model को. So ये तो allowed है नहीं high risk वाला है.
Yes, this is allowed and is high risk.
Biometric वाला तो prohibited है.
सर ये कहना चाह रहे हैं कि ये भी तो रियल टाइम है और हर एक इंडिविजुअल की यूजर स्टोर है, तो ये भी तो होना चाहिए prohibited.
But ये education institutions पे है specifically. But maybe sir ये education.
No, see, remote biometric identification, that is high risk. Okay. Now, so that is high risk. So, for one high risk you are doing 3 high risk things, that is okay. High risk should not be doing prohibited thing, because prohibited comes above high risk. So, prohibited is prohibited, high risk is allowed. So, what is the question now?
High risk मतलब ये biometric monitoring ही कर रहा है actually.
Okay.
But high risk prohibited में क्या था कि हमें real time में monitoring biometric monitoring नहीं करनी. So high risk में कैसे allow कर रहा हूँ? Educational institute में कैसे allow कर रहा हूँ? But आदित्य राज ने ये बोला कि उसको.
So just a second. Just a second. This takes us to Article 5 again. So see, listen. What is prohibited is biometric categorization and not identification. So biometric categorization is prohibited.
सर ये तो ऐसे भी तो हो सकता है कि बच्चा चीटिंग करता है ज़्यादा तो
कैटेगराइज इसको पहले पकड़ लो.
Okay, now they talk about, so the real time remote biometric identification systems in publicly accessible spaces. So classroom should be that for the purpose of law enforcement. Okay, so now they say the use of real time remote biometric identification system is prohibited for the purpose of law enforcement. So a specific purpose has come now, unless in this as far as strictly necessary one of the following objectives. So this is fine, make sense now. So since you are doing this in educational vocational, this is not prohibited but still high risk.
चीटिंग करना भी तो
क्या चीज?
चीटिंग करना तो प्रोहिबिटेड.
तो लॉ एनफोर्समेंट का ही तो तरीका होगा.
No. Law enforcement authorities, they are well defined things. So for example, university is not a law enforcement agency. Anybody who is trying to ensure in a university that students don't cheat, that is not a law enforcement agency. Okay.
सर अगर एजुकेशन में इतना स्ट्रिक्ट प्रोहिबिशन और हाई रिस्क है तो ये रिक्रूटिंग और जॉब के अंदर भी होना चाहिए.
Okay.
सर एटीएस का कितना गंदा यूज करती है कंपनीज.
Okay. So he has a valid point here now.
कीवर्ड्स नहीं और भी एडवांस है.
So firstly, just a second. Do you agree this high risk also makes sense? Okay. So wherever you don't, just argue here. Now, next thing. So employment, workers, management, and excess of self-employment. That is also prohibited or high risk? What is high risk? Use of AI in this thing. So let's go into details. AI systems intended to be used for recruitment or selection of natural persons, notably to place targeted job advertisements, to analyze and filter job applications, and to evaluate candidates. Right now this is heavily going on, right? I don't know. Okay. Now, is this going? This might be going on in EU too, because right now there is no regulation, no law. But once this regulation gets passed in the European Parliament, then they can't do it. But in India, we can still do it because there is no regulation, no law as far as this thing is concerned. Okay. Now, did you guys hear about those stories? हाँ.
मतलब कोई यूज कर रहा है और अपने मेल डाल दिया वहाँ की कंसल्टेंट का भी तो कुछ एक्शन होगा.
There is no law.
तो अभी तो हो गया ना सर ये पास.
Now, EU.
हाँ तो
And not yet passed by the way, not yet passed, and even if it gets passed, it's applicable in EU.
हाँ तो सर मान लो मैं वर्क फ्रॉम होम या कुछ भी कर रहा हूँ
हाँ.
EU के अंदर और वो लोग ये
If you are in EU, then this is applicable to you.
वर्क फ्रॉम होम वालों पे नहीं होगा.
See, then you don't remember the scope. What was the scope of this regulation? So if you are a resident in EU, then no company can do this to you. If you are in India, and if a EU company is recruiting you, they can't do this.
हाँ तो सर वो EU की कंपनी है.
So if EU company is recruiting you from India here, they can't do this. This is still high risk.
और सर फिर ऐसा होता है हमने वो डाल दिया कि ये तो अभी भी कर रहे हैं सर. किसको मिल रहा है?
So we'll see for remedies. There is something called AI office that they have created.
सर ये अप्लाई हो गया.
Not yet. Why?
रिज्यूम
No, but if you are applying for companies in India,
सर इंडिया में क्या ही है, इंडिया में 5 किलो राशन मिल ही रहा है। ये क्या होता है?
ये जो तुम्हारे ये जो नॉइस है जो यहाँ पे आ रहा है ना, ये मेरे को एडिट करना पड़ रहा है, और इस वजह से ये वाले वीडियोस बहुत पीछे चल रहे हैं कंपेयर टू LLM। I mean, it's okay with me, but this class is not the but still I don't prohibit any of you from saying any damn thing. Okay, continue. So this makes sense. You know, I came across this story on LinkedIn where they said कि some of the students, what they did, they wrote in white ink in their resume Stanford, Harvard, okay. No, what I am saying, in white ink you write Stanford, Harvard. So when you take a printout, HR will not be able to see, but the digital system will see it's a Stanford or Harvard candidate, so it will go through the digital screening. नहीं ठीक है. So next, AI intended to be used to make decisions affecting terms of the work related relationships, promotion and termination of work related contractual relationships, to allocate tasks based on individual behavior or personal traits or characteristics, and to monitor and evaluate performance and behavior of persons in such relationships. So this makes sense. One is when you are trying to recruit, you can't use it, right, during recruitment or selection. Second is even when you are in job and if you are looking to promote people, you still can't use AI there, okay, or terminate or promotion, termination, or whatever things that are there. Right. So it's a high risk, you can still use it, but the conformity assessment has to be done. Thank you. We have not done it yet, but we'll see that if systems are in high risk, then this regulation asks you to, to be compliant with a lot of other things. Okay, so there is a procedure that the company must follow. Access to and enjoyment of essential private services and essential public services and benefits. AI systems intended to be used by public authorities or on behalf of public authorities to evaluate the eligibility of natural persons for essential public assistance benefit services, including healthcare services, as well as to grant, reduce, revoke or reclaim such benefits and services. What is this? तुम्हारा 5 किलो राशन आ जाएगा इधर. Why?
Social credits. Like, not complete.
No, see, social credits is prohibited, that we saw in Article 5 itself. So if you are trying to do social scoring, that is prohibited. You don't even reach until here.
सर वो मनरेगा और के अंदर अप्लाई नहीं होगा.
Right.
So caste is not that. Sir, ये जो EWS की जो certification होती है, I guess उनके लिए जो कि economic.
There is no EWS in the EU.
I mean, like, बस example दे रहा था.
No, what I am trying to say is, you are going through the,
Indian person.
No, Indian perspective is also fine. I am saying just stick to this healthcare services to grant, reduce, revoke or reclaim such benefits and services.
Sir, जो government official
Exactly.
को healthcare benefits मिलते हैं.
Okay. See, government has so many plans, so many yojnas, okay, so where you are giving 5 kilo rations, where you are giving, Ujjwala Yojana, and there are so many other things that government grants, okay. If you just put, some objective criteria that your income has to be less than this, fine. But if you start using AI, then that is high risk, okay. So government or Anybody can still do. So here it says used by public authorities or on behalf of public authorities. So either Indian government or any government does it, or government employs TCS to do it. It is the same. Yes.
मतलब कि अल्टीमेटली है तो लॉजिक से ना
हाँ.
कौन कौन एलिजिबल है और कौन एलिजिबल नहीं है।
Exactly.
फिर उसमें ये तो लॉजिक लगाया तो उसके रेस्ट्रिक्शन
नहीं, that is the whole point. AI as of we know it today, it is not explainable. So it will do something and you can't attribute a reason why it did what it did.
जैसे वो टेस्ला वाला हुआ था ना, जिसमें कार ने इंसान को एक्सीडेंट के अंदर मार दिया।
Right. See, AI systems today, see, systems are here, medias and movies project them here, and we think it is there. Okay, so that is the problem. I mean, I'll come to that in the last one. And उसके लिए तो मेरे को ही डर लेंगे शायद. So, including next one. So AI systems intended to be used to evaluate this one. AI systems intended to be used to evaluate the credit worthiness of natural persons or establish their credit score. Where is Kapil? With the exception of AI systems used for the purpose of detecting financial fraud. So I don't understand this. Here you have to help me. Why is this exception made? I mean, I don't. So until here, this was fine with me. Until score. So AI systems intended to be used to evaluate credit worthiness of natural persons to establish their credit score. That means if you are trying to decide whether you will give me loan or not, and you use an AI system to do this, which in today's world in India it is heavily being used, right? All insurance companies are trying to infer when will I die. This is what essentially they are doing, right? All banks, they are trying to do whether this person will be a defaulter or not. So whether I should be able to give loans to them. So this is going on. There is no regulation. You can do whatever. What I don't understand is, with the exception of AI systems used for the purpose of detecting financial fraud, why should this exception be allowed, and to whom? I find something missing here. I don't like this line the way it is.
मेरे हिसाब से फाइनेंशियल फ्रॉड करके सब यूरोप में ही जाते हैं, तो
By the way, EU and Britain are now different after Brexit. So I don't get this. I mean, I want some level of discussion on this. So with the exception of AI systems used for the purpose of detecting financial fraud, I mean, if the moment you are trying to do whether I will do financial fraud or not, that goes here and is wrong. So that I understand. Okay. But with the exception of AI systems used for the purpose of detecting financial fraud. So this means that either you have a data and you are trying to figure out whether in a particular transaction some fraud has occurred or not. But to me, this captures more than just this. So yes, so this is high risk, but this is not high risk. No, so continue. That's what I am saying. Ki what I am saying is, few words are missing here. What is exactly exempted and what is allowed. So given a data set, if you are trying to figure out whether a particular credit card transaction was fraud or not, this makes sense. But if you are trying to figure out whether a that's a different thing. That will depend. Right. Right.
और केसेस में एक बार वेरिएबल है कि हम देख सकते हैं, लेकिन एक फाइनेंशियल फ्रॉड को मिस कर देना मतलब कि एक क्राइम को मिस कर देने जैसा है
right?
तो सर ये तो
No.
ये वाला portion।
See, it is not that black and white. Those who have written it, they thought of something. हाँ.
Sir, if my bank names thousands of the people, thousands of the normal persons,
Hmm.
and that they are potential financial fraudsters,
Hmm.
maybe.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So bank will not able to give credit.
But this goes here, because the moment you are trying to assign this fact, so in a way you are assigning a credit score.
सर वो
In this case, it is binary, to give or not to give. Make sense, nahi? So this is this whatever you are saying, I think goes whatever is written until this comma. It does not go into the exception.
But after Shitesh Mama,
Hmm.
I have a credit score of 630.
Hmm.
But according to their transaction, AI system predicts he is a financial fraudster, maybe in future. Just yes or no, or maybe in future.
सर ये जो आप बोल रहे हो एक्सेप्शन वाली चीज या हाई रिस्क है या प्रोहिबिटेड
No, so this is out of high risk now.
और ये प्रोहिबिटेड नहीं
High risk means not prohibited. I think enough for today.